So this is the first video of this series on Photoshop, and this is just to give you an overview of Photoshop itself. So I've just opened up Photoshop. I'm using Adobe CC, the latest version. And when you open up Photoshop, go to a new document, and you've got a choice of either a photo document, a print, art, illustration, web, etc. If we go to print, probably the most common that we'll use, I'm just going to click A4 for now. We can change the width and the height on the right hand side, either in millimeters, pixels or centimeters. The resolution is something we need to think about when we first create a new document. If we're creating this document for print, we probably want the resolution to be about 300 pixels per inch. That's the pixel density, the amount of detail that we have. If it's for websites or something like that, it's probably going to be about 72 pixels per inch. But you can always rescale this later, so probably best just to keep it on 300 pixels per inch to start with. Next thing we do need to think about is the colour mode. Now, normally, if we're going to print this document out, we want to set it to CMYK. That's the 4 printer colours: cyan, magenta, yellow and black. That sets the colour mode up correctly. If we're going to use this for the web or online, then we can use the RGB colour mode. Okay, so just think about this before we set up our page. I'm just going to click RGB for now, and click Create. So here's my artboard, and in Photoshop we have a number of menus and toolbars which I'm just going to briefly explain. On the right hand side we have our Layers toolbar. This is the most important one, the one we'll be using a lot. And Photoshop works with various layers, and I'll show you that in a minute. On the left hand side we have all of our tools, such as our type tool, little type thing, our brushes, selection tools which we'll be using a lot of, magic wand and crop. A lot of those are quite common. We've got our colour swatches here, black and white, which I'll show you about in a minute. And at the top we've got this menu that changes every time depending on what we click. So if I click a selection tool, if I click the magic wand, we get a lot more options up at the top that we can use. Okay, so this is my canvas, a blank white canvas. My background is white and you notice that that is locked. I actually want to rotate my canvas. I actually meant to set this up as landscape, so let's just do that quickly. Up in image, we've got our canvas size. We can change the size, we can change the image size if we want, but the one I want here is image rotation. I'm just going to hover on that and rotate that by 90 degrees so it is in landscape. Okay, so on this, I'm just going to, in this video, explain how to use the layers. So I'm just going to grab an image from online. This is a picture of Yves Bahal, the lead designer at Fuse Project, an American design consultancy. So I've just literally dragged the image in. The image is in my files on my desktop. And when it comes in, I can click the tick to accept that image onto my canvas. You'll notice on the right hand side this image is now on a separate layer to the background. So I've got my background layer and I've got my image layer. I'm just going to import another image, some of his work that he's done. Okay, so that's come in a little bit big. I want to scale that down a little bit, so I'm holding down Shift on the keyboard to keep the aspect ratio the same, dragging from the corner and reducing that size. So I'm going to put this image somewhere up here, I think, something like that. Okay, so that looks about right to me, and now I'm going to click the tick. What you notice that'll do is it'll sharpen up. When you bring in images initially, it won't show the full pixel density until you accept it. Okay. So what you'll notice here is I've got my background layer, I've got my picture of Yves Bahal in his design studio, and I've got some of his work for GE Electric. So this is looking at electric charging points. And you can see that they are on different layers. I can click any of those layers and drag them up and down. So this one here, for example, I could drag that, click and drag that behind the picture. So now you see that the main background picture is sitting on top of those electric charging points, and I could drag it back up again, and so on. Okay. One thing that's really useful is when you click, so we're just on our move control here at the top, the left hand side. When we're on that, if you click auto select and show transform controls, make sure they're selected. That just makes life a lot easier. It means when we click on something, we get the little boxes around it and we can click, drag and move it. Okay, I'm just going to quickly drag in another one. This is one laptop per child, another project that they worked on. Okay, so put it there, that's fine, and accept that. Okay, what I want to do now though is just quickly do a very quick selection. We're going to be looking at selections in a number of videos, and it's one of the most useful features in Photoshop is how we do different selections. So on this image in the top right hand corner, I'd like to get rid of that background. Now I've got lots of different selection techniques, but because it is white, I'm just going to zoom in. To zoom in, I use the keyboard shortcut Control and Space, and then it gives me a little plus icon. I click the left mouse button to zoom in. To zoom out, I click Control, Alt and Space and do exactly the same. There are a number of other shortcut keys, especially if you're on Mac, so you can just Google those to find out what they are. Okay, so because I've got these recharging stations here, they've got a nice white background, I can probably very quickly and easily cut out that background. Probably just using the magic wand. So my fourth tool down on the left hand side, click and hold if it's on that quick selection tool. So all of these tools you click and hold with the left mouse button and find the one you want. So magic wand tool would probably be sufficient for this. You see that I've got this no entry sign. This no entry sign means I'm not selected on the layer, okay? So none of these layers are selected, so it's like, well, what do you want to do? What I need to do is I need to click on the layer that I want to select, this one here, the GE one, and if I use a magic wand, I can click on that and you can see it's given me a pretty good cutout of my of the pumps. One thing you'll notice here, I'm just going to zoom in, you'll notice that because the colour is quite similar here between this pale grey and the white, it's actually come on the inside. So if I was to delete everything in this selection, we'd start to delete that little bit there, which wouldn't look particularly good. I'm going to deselect. I'm going to use a keyboard shortcut Control D, deselect. And up here on our magic wand selections, we've got this tolerance here, and this is with how close to the initial colour that I've selected do you want Adobe to select. It's on 10. Let's just knock it down to 5 and see if that makes a difference. Yeah, so you can see here 5% tolerance, so it's within 5% or 5 points of this background white colour. So you see it's now not selected that. We do, however, have a few little blips here coming in, and it's not the cleanest of selections, but I think it's a lot better. We're still on a white background, so I think that'll be absolutely fine. Okay, so I've created that selection. Now what that means is it means I can only work within that selection. So for example, oh no, I'm going to show you something else first before I do that. Okay, if we want to delete this background, I could just hit delete, but what you're going to see is there's an error comes up. So if I hit delete, it will say you could not complete this because it is a smart object. I'm going to click OK. If we look at our layers, in the bottom right hand corner of each of these layer icons, there is that little square, a little document with a square in it. That means it's imported it as a smart object. Okay, it's not a pixel based object, it's still, the Photoshop's kind of reading it more like a vector, which we can't edit. So what we need to do is we need to right click on that layer and we need to rasterize layer. So if we rasterize that layer, you see that little box has disappeared, and what this means is we can now work on this layer. It's now an active layer for us to work on. So in this case, all I'm going to do is I've got that selection, I'm going to hit delete, and you'll see it deletes the background. Ignore that little shadow bit at the bottom. It's not ideal, I know, it's not perfect. I'm going to use a keyboard shortcut Control D to deselect, zoom out, go back to my move thing, I'm going to move it around. It's not perfect, I probably want to go in there and clean that up a little bit better around those bottom edges, especially on this side where it's very evident. But you can see I've now got rid of that white background. When we have a selection, any selection, I'm just going to click back on that layer, and I'm going to, at the top here, I'm going to go to this selection. This is a box rectangular marquee tool. I'm just going to draw a box. Okay. When we have a selection of any sort, it means that we can only work within that area. So for example, I just get a brush, the brush is on black paintbrush, and I draw across there, you see I'm only allowed to work within that selection box. Control D is always to deselect. Obviously that looks a bit of a mess, so I'm going to either Control Z to undo, or if you run out of Control Zs, on the top here, third one down, there's a little history icon. Okay, click on the history icon and you can see we've got a full history of everything that we have done. Okay, so I can just take it back to free move. Yep, so before we made that and before we put the brush tool in. Yep. So there we go, that's gone back in time, got rid of that little brush that I made. Okay, we can also use the rubber. Here's the rubber, and again it won't let me do anything until I select a layer I want to work on. So I'm going to select that layer, zoom in a bit, and I can start to rub out some of this bits if I want to kind of clean it up a little bit better. To change the size of a brush or a rubber, when it's selected, right click, and you have the size menu, so you can reduce the size and you can increase or reduce the hardness. So 100% hard brush gives you very, I just showed a better area, gives a very crisp line like that. Undo. Right click, a very soft brush gives this soft fuzzy line. Okay. So I'm selected on this layer, G1. I can pick up my brush or my rubber here, and just tidy that up a little bit. Yeah, tidy that up if I want to. Okay, cool. Next one I want to do is I want to get rid of the layer background on this laptop. This is a one laptop per child laptop. Again, I'm going to start with the magic wand. I'm going to see what the magic wand is like. So again, I need to select my layer, select that laptop layer, click that magic wand. It's a bit messy, isn't it? Control D, deselect. What I might do actually, I might be better, click and hold, is using a quick selection tool. Quick selection tool, you drag around on the area that you want. Okay, so I'm just dragging around on this white area, and it's going to try and pick up as much of that white area as possible. Okay, it might still have an issue over here. Yeah, so it's still got a little bit of an issue there. But otherwise, that's generally pretty good. Okay, Control D, deselect. I'm going to leave that bit to the end. So I'm just going to select around here, select down here, okay, and along to here. Okay, so I'm going to select all of this bit first. Remember, right click to rasterize that layer first, and now I can hit delete, and that gets rid of that background. Control D, deselect. What I might do here is I might bring it in a little bit, something like that. Delete. I'm just going to do this in stages now. Yep. Oh, no, it's going on that keyboard a little bit. Deselect. I might have to do some of this manually to get rid of that. So what I might do is I might get my rubber and I might bring it in here. If I rub out this little bit here, right click, hardness, make that quite hard. So if I rub out this little bit here first, then I can go back. If you hold down shift, get a nice straight line with your rubber. Yep. So, or brush, click, shift, holding down shift, select, and from here down to there. Okay, so what I've just done is I've chopped it out a little bit. It's quite hard to see, but that's chopped out. Now I'm going to go to my quick selection tool. Actually, I should just be able to magic wand it now. Think about it. I should be able to magic wand that and hit delete, deselect. Okay, a couple of little bits I need to get rid of, but generally that's pretty good. Okay, so spend time, get rid of all those edges, any jaggedy edges, and create nice clean images. Okay, so we've got our layers, so hopefully we get to see that we can move these layers up and down. We can put things in front or behind each other, and we can use selection and rubbers and pens to rub things out if we want to. Last thing I'm going to show you quickly in this video is about type and adding in text. So we've got our type tool here. Click on that type tool, click anywhere we want to select the type. The font is at the top, regular, the point size, and the colour at the top. So let's just change this colour. With the colour, you've got this kind of classic colour wheel, select colour anywhere. If you drag off though, you can use the eyedrop tool to pick up a colour. So I like that blue, so I'm going to pick up that blue there. That's a really nice little blue. I'm going to say, okay, that's the colour that I want, and you can see that colour's gone straight into my palette. Now you can select a font from your computer, or a nice little feature that Photoshop has with Adobe Creative Cloud is that you can download fonts from the internet. So if I click here, if I click on character on the right hand side, drop down on my fonts, and you see we've got this TK, and this is the type kit that comes with Adobe. Click on that type kit, and it's going to open up the browser. And what this means is you can download any of these fonts onto your computer using it with Creative Cloud from the Adobe library. So it means you don't need to buy or try and find fonts or whatever. Okay, so say for example, I like this one, Europa. I'm going to click on this font. This top one, this looks alright. I can sync all of them, or just sync the particular font that I want. So sync that font. Font is synced. Okay, so it was added to my font library. That's great. I can come back. Okay, so I can scroll down. This one here, Europa Bold, that's one I just added in. Click that, and I'm just going to write Fuse Project, which is the name of the design consultancy that designed all this stuff that Yves Bahal runs. Okay, click off that. I'm happy with that. Click on this move if I want to move it around anywhere on the page. I can do that. Okay, close out. Great. So hopefully this gives you a quick introduction to Photoshop, some of the core features that we'll be using. Thank you.